I never imagined waking up as an Oiran in Edo, Japan would lead to a heartbreaking choice. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as I lay amongst silk and cherry blossoms, the scent of incense heavy in the air. I was trapped in a world of beauty painting that was both breathtaking and suffocating. I rolled over, the sumptuous fabric cradling me, but it felt like a cage. My past life felt like a distant dream, fading and obscured by the desperation surrounding me that I was a courtesan, the most sought-after Oiran in all of Edo. I was trained to entice and entertain, to weave stories with my very presence. But today, it was different. The weight of expectation clung to me, each adorned hairpin a reminder of my obligations, my duties. My hands trembled as I adjusted the delicate fabric of my kimono, the colors brilliant yet heavy against my skin. Outside, life pulsed with vibrant energy. I could hear laughter, children shouting, the clatter of wooden sandals hitting cobblestone. But inside, silence loomed. Light from the shoji screens danced softly against the walls, but all I felt was the chilling grip of loneliness. My heart ached for the family I'd left behind. My mother, with her warm smile and gentle hands, my little brother, innocent and unaware of the darkness that would consume us all. They needed me, yet here I was, a star locked away in a gilded cage. Then I met him. A mysterious man, cloaked in shadows, his eyes wild and desperate. He whispered secrets of freedom, of rebellion that thrummed beneath the surface of our seemingly peaceful lives. His words ignited a fire within me, a yearning for escape. I felt the thrill of desire coursing through my veins, the promise of something more than this perfumed life, the metallic taste of hope clashing with fear. But every heartbeat reminded me of what was at stake. My safety, the lives of those I loved. The nights grew longer and darker. I would hear whispers among the other courtesans, fragmented stories of love and loss, of men whose hearts were broken by fragile dreams. My own heart began to shatter under the weight of unspoken truths and unshed tears. What would I sacrifice to find happiness? To break free? One evening, the air was thick with tension. The lanterns flickered ominously outside as the city prepared for something grand, a festival that promised both joy and chaos. Standing by the window, I felt my heart race. The cries of celebration echoed, but my chest felt tight, as if shackled. Part of me wanted to go, to dance in the moonlight and forget this internal war. But another part knew the risks. I had to make a choice. Then came the moment, a heavy knock on the door. My breath hitched. The mysterious man stood there, his eyes aflame with urgency. "We must go now." I faltered, fear coiling in my stomach. My decision loomed before me, a fork in the road I never asked to face. The festival's laughter faded into a haunting silence. What would I leave behind? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The moon hung heavy in the sky, casting an ethereal glow through the shoji screens like a spectral witness to my turmoil. I stood frozen, the knot in my stomach tightening as the mysterious man implored, "This is our chance. We can be free together." His words sparkled with a herald of promise, yet an unbearable weight settled on my shoulders. What did freedom mean if it came at the cost of everything I knew? Images of my family flooded my mind. Their smiles, their laughter, the warmth of home. If I chose to leave, I might never see them again. Would they understand? Would they forgive me for chasing a dream that felt so selfish, so uncertain? My heart was a battlefield, and each side fought with fervor for what they believed was right. The knock on the door resonated through my heart like a drum. What lay behind it? A future full of risks and unknowns, or the oppressive, yet familiar, embrace of duty? My thoughts swirled chaotically as if they too were caught in the festival's revelry that pulsed through the streets outside. Please, he pressed, stepping closer. His urgency was palpable, igniting something within me, a spark of rebellion, a whisper of what could be. I searched his eyes for solace, for assurance. Do you not long for more than this? He asked, voice low yet insistent. In that moment, the world around me faded. I could almost hear the distant melodies of the festival, the laughter of those who had chosen to embrace life without shackles. Yet here I was, standing in the path of my destiny, bound by fears and responsibilities that felt insurmountable. What if we're caught? I managed to whisper, fear curling around my voice. What if, we won't be, he interrupted, determination lighting his features. I promise I'll protect you. But we must act now, a sudden slip of the tongue, protect me. I had never been protected. The notion felt almost foreign in its sweetness, yet it provoked a rush of vulnerability I was not accustomed to. I realized, as I studied him, that he offered not just a chance for escape but a piece of hope woven intricately with trust. Just then, a soft sound pulled my focus. One of the other courtesans, Yuki, peeked in at the door, her face a mask of confusion and concern. What's going on? She asked, darting glances back and forth between us. Unlike me, she had remained ensconced in her role, each day performing for our patrons with grace and unwavering poise. Her presence, now filled with worry, grounded me momentarily. Yuki, my voice faltered, battling the truth and the urge to confide in her. She had always been my confidant, and for a fleeting moment, I thought perhaps I could share this burden with her, but fear gripped my heart, a fear that once I voiced my desires, they would dissipate, no longer mine alone. Instead, I found my throat closing as I shook my head. It's nothing, I lied, forcing a smile that felt like glass under my skin. Just a fleeting thought. Yuki's brows knit together, concern deepening. Please, be careful. There are whispers of danger tonight. She leaned closer, voice low. They say the shogun's men are out in search of those who wish to escape their fates. The weight of her words seeped into the cracks of my resolve. I clutched the fabric of my kimono, feeling as if the very threads might unravel under my turmoil. The stakes had shifted dramatically, the cost of my longing now bore a price I had not foresaw. I can't, I finally whispered, my voice barely more than a breath. I can't do this. I can't leave. But even as I spoke, an unexpected resolve began to form as I considered the world beyond these walls. Breaking free was not merely an act of fleeing, it was a declaration of my own existence. Yet, fear's icy fingers clutched my heart with renewed fervor, just as I turned to explain my decision to the man who represented everything I craved yet feared. A strange sound rippled through the air, a low rumble, like thunder, but dissonant. My heart raced as eyes darted towards the window. The chaotic celebration outside had taken a dark turn. Get down! He shouted, pulling me to the floor. The room trembled as the sounds of commotion surged. My mind raced. What was happening? A cacophony of shouts erupted from the streets, mingling with the sound of crashing wood and terrified cries. Yuki's face blanched, and she crouched beside us, her breath quickening. They're here, she gasped, wide-eyed with realization. In that instant, clarity struck. My heart hammered violently in my chest, and it dawned on me, there was no more time for decisions, no more chances to take. I stood at the edge of a precipice. Would I choose the embrace of fear or the tempest of freedom? And as the first echoes of chaos burst into our sanctuary, fracturing the illusion of security, something inside me ignited with fierce determination. I had to act, and unite with my rebels against the impending storm. Before I could voice my thoughts, the door exploded inward, the figures of the shogun's guard silhouetted against the flickering light behind them. Seek the Oiran! One shouted, cold and authoritative. As the reality of my situation sank in, the tears brimming in my eyes were no longer from helplessness but from the dawning clarity of what I had to fight for. Freedom, family, my very life. As they converged into one singular desire, something heavy yet liberating surged within me, but then, just before the world swallowed me whole, the man turned back to me, panic splintering his features. Whatever you do, do not forget who you are. As darkness threatened to claim me, a revelation hit me like lightning. I may have been an Oiran, but I was so much more a fighter. In that instant, I knew that my choices would reverberate through time and space far beyond the walls of this room. And as I was dragged into the unfurling chaos, one thing remained painfully clear: my story was far from over, and fate had woven a new strand into the tapestry of my existence. The world swirled around me as hands grasped and pulled, yanking me into a turbulent sea of chaos. I had scarcely registered the weight of the man's words, "Do not forget who you are," when the guards surged through the threshold. Passion ignited within me, blending with fear and adrenaline in a tempest that coursed along my veins. "Run!" I screamed to Yuki, barely able to process the distance between us as we were swept apart in the riptide of bodies. Her haunting eyes met mine, and I could see her brave facade cracking under the weight of dread. I had to believe she would be all right, that we would find each other again. The guards shouted commands above the din, their voices melding with the sounds of shouts and shrieks echoing from the streets. I darted into the shadowy hallway, searching for an escape. My heart rattled in my chest, thrumming to a frantic rhythm that was almost deafening. Each step felt heavy, the fabric of my kimono dragging against my ankles like chains striving to tether me to my fate. Suddenly a pair of iron hands seized my arm, yanking me backward. I turned, my vision blurring with panic, and found myself staring into the cold eyes of a guard. "Oiran!" He spat, his grip digging into my skin. "You think you can escape the shogun's will?" In that moment, clarity cut through the chaos like a katana through silk. My essence had been defined by duty and expectation, yet now, it flickered like a candle caught in a gale. This man, this storm, would dictate my fate no longer. "Let me go!" I cried, the words escaping my lips as a primal roar. Sparks of rebellion surged through me, igniting a tenacity I did not know I possessed. The guard looked momentarily taken aback, perhaps unaccustomed to defiance from a courtesan. But it was all I needed, a flicker of an opening that would allow me to break free. Summoning every ounce of strength, I twisted away from his grasp, my heart pounding against my ribs, and sprinted deeper into the labyrinth of the house. Footfalls echoed behind me as I raced through the narrow corridors, remembering the paths I had walked countless times in entwined melancholy and beauty. This time, however, they became the veins of my flight, propelling me towards the world beyond. As I rounded a corner, I abruptly collided with a familiar figure. "What?" I gasped, looking up to see the tear-stained face of Akira, my childhood friend. He had ventured into the den of the courtesans, seeking me out amidst the chaos. "They're searching for you." He grabbed my wrist, urgency filling his gaze. "We have to go now, but Yuki." A pang of desperation echoed in my voice, churning with the threat of loss. "Yuki is resourceful," he insisted. "She will find a way. But we have no time. The guards were ordered to take you alive." His grip was insistent, a lifeline casting me out into the churning waters of uncertainty. Torn yet resolute, I nodded, willing myself to trust him. We sprinted through the dim hallways, shadows enveloping us like shrouds, and my heart raced with an intoxicating mix of fear and hope. Akira led me toward the back of the house, where a service door lay ajar. Light started to prick the edges of my world, and I could almost feel the air humming with the promise of freedom, but as I crossed the threshold, a high-pitched wail resounded through the air, distant yet strikingly close. My breath caught in my throat, panic flooding my senses. What was that? A conflict raged within me, the urge to turn back clashing wildly with my instinct to flee. Akira's hand squeezed mine, urging me onward, but we stood frozen, caught in the tense web of uncertainty. "Go!" I urged him, the weight of impending doom molding my resolve. "You have to keep going. You'll be caught, and I can't let that happen. No, I'm not leaving you," he protested, desperation sharpening the lines around his mouth. "If they find you, they will find you too. You can't sacrifice yourself for me." The truth pulled at me, each word a force pushing us away from one another, carving a serpentine rift in our friendship. He hesitated, and in that moment, the scream intensified, followed by a cacophony of dread. "You have to trust me," I whispered, swallowing the sorrow that threatened to drown us both. "You know what's at stake." Reluctantly, with a heavy heart, Akira nodded, releasing my hand but not without a final, desperate grasp, a promise painted in the grief that hung between us. I turned to flee, adrenaline spiking as I rushed toward the path that pulsed with possibility. I burst through the door and found myself outside, the cool night air wrapping around me like a bomb. The streets were alive with chaos. The festival was in full swing, but I knew down to my bones that the laughter and music covered the agony lurking just beneath. As I moved, shadows danced and flickered with the lanterns, but a sudden glimpse caught my eye, a figure concealed in an alleyway, watching with intent. My pulse quickened, the flicker of recognition ignited a spark of hope. "Is that you?" I breathed, stepping closer, realizing it was Yuki, breathless yet composed. Without a word, she gestured for silence, pressing a finger to her lips, her eyes glimmering with the brilliance of unshed tears. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered, her voice a soft, urgent plea that pulled at my heart, but the weight of impending capture still lingered like a specter, and the lingering chaos beckoned to swallow us whole. "We need to hurry," I urged, but the hesitation in Yuki's eyes sent a shiver of uncertainty through me. "There's something you need to know," she breathed, her voice trembling with concealed truths. "They're not just after you, they're searching for something or someone." "What do you mean?" I pressed, dread curling in my stomach, instinctively knowing this revelation could change everything. In that moment, the air thickened, charged with an urgency both exhilarating and frightening, diverging our paths into a reckoning that could shatter everything we believed to be true. Before she could divulge further, the night exploded into motion with shouts approaching. "Run!" I urged, grasping her hand. Together, we dashed into the depths of the night, hearts racing, shadows whirling around us, each pulse bringing us closer to an uncertain future and to the truth that might yet bind or shatter us forever. The city was alive with electric pulses of sound, the laughter of festival-goers mingling with the strains of music and the distant echo of drums. Each step I took with Yuki felt precarious, as if the very ground beneath us was a facade, hiding danger beneath the festive veneer. "Where are we going?" I panted as we dashed down an alley, pulling our shadows toward the edge of the chaos that roiled through the streets. Yuki's grip, though strong, was tinged with anxiety, a weight that pressed against my chest. "To a safe place, where we can meet Akira," she replied, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "We can't be caught wandering these streets unguarded." We ducked into a narrow passageway, the walls mottled with age and dampness, a stark contrast to the vibrant world just beyond. My mind raced, barely keeping pace with the gravity of our situation. "Yuki, what did you mean about them searching for someone?" I asked, the question hanging in the air like a heavy fog. Her face crumpled, a mix of determination and fear swirling within her expressive eyes. "It's about the trinket," she murmured, glancing fleetingly toward the entrance of the alley as if expecting the guards to burst in. "The shogun believes it holds unimaginable power. He thinks it is linked to the soul of the last summoner." The words sunk into me like stones, crashing through the dappled light of false security. "A summoner?" I echoed, the notion wild and impossible. "But you told me it was just a legend." Yuki nodded, her breath quickening. "I thought so too, but there are whispers and there are those who believe you could be connected to it. That's why they're desperate to find you." My heart pounded, the echo of Yuki's words sending ripples of confusion through the very fabric of my being. "But I'm just an Oiran, Yuki. I don't have powers." "You began to awaken something within you, didn't you?" she interrupted. "You felt it that night under the stars, didn't you?" The memory surged back, standing beneath the vast expanse, a whisper of ancient magic skimming the edges of my consciousness, filling me with warmth amidst the chill. Was it possible? Was I truly entwined in the legend of a past I had never known? As if sensing the precarious balance of our conversation, Yuki grabbed my shoulders, her grip firm yet pleading. "You need to understand, any moment the shogun's guards will descend upon us. We have no time to waste." Just then, a noise echoed from the entrance of the alley. Shouts, chaos, the clang of armor against swords. I stumbled back, panic surging in my veins. They're here. Without thinking, I pulled Yuki deeper into the shadowy recess, seeking solace over clarity. We sliced through the darkness, weaving through the alleyways as the sounds of pursuit flooded our senses. I felt utterly unmoored, a boat adrift in turbulent waters, unsure if I would ever find the shore again. That we ducked behind a stack of wooden crates, both breathless and exposed, hearts thudding like war drums. I dared not look into Yuki's eyes, afraid of the fear mirrored there, the uncertainty that could shatter the brittle resolve we clung to. What now? I whispered, feeling a mix of dread and determination blend within me. Yuki's gaze hardened, a flame igniting within the storm. We have to unlock the truth. We need to find the trinket before they do. It's our only chance, but if we do find it, what then? If the shogun believes I hold power. She silenced me with a firm hand on my mouth, the intimacy of the gesture igniting passion where fear was meant to thrive. You have to trust yourself. Whatever this power is, it's connected to you. Not just to bind you to fate's cruel design, but to help us break free from it. Before I could process her words, a loud crash erupted nearby, reverberating through the tension-filled air as guards stormed down the passage, their presence a palpable force. Split up. I urged, an act of desperation coating the edges of my voice. We can't let them catch us both. We have to meet at the old shrine. No. Yuki insisted, her brow furrowing with a mixture of fear and rebellion. We're stronger. Together. Suddenly, a guard appeared at the end of our hiding spot, eyes scanning the narrow alley. My heart sank, and before I could think, I lunged forward, pulling Yuki back into the shadows of the crates as the guard passed dangerously close. In that instance, the air thickened with the gravity of our choices. I could see the compassion in Yuki's eyes swirling, and I realized how fiercely I wanted to protect her from the storm threatening to engulf us. Time felt like quicksand beneath us. Please, I whispered, agony choking my words. Just trust me. I won't let them take you, I promise. The briefest flicker of understanding passed between us, a bond deeper than words could express. Yuki nodded, and in the next breath, I felt a surge of hope amid the undercurrents of dread. With synchronized resolve, we broke away from the shadows, weaving toward the Shrinia destination we both knew could harbor unfinished truths. Yet, as we threaded through the chaotic streets, I felt an undeniable weight on my spirit, a nagging sense of impending betrayal lurking just beyond the threads of hope. Our hearts raced, footsteps pounding against the cobblestones, adrenaline fueling our flight. But just before we reached the temple's entrance, an unexpected turn shattered our moment of escape. A flash of familiar figures blocking our path. Wait! Akira was there, flanked by the guards I had desperately feared confronting. This was all part of the plan. The world shifted beneath my feet, the reverberations of his words curling around us like an inescapable tempest as realization dawned. Betrayal obscured in the guise of familiarity, his eyes now cold and calculating. I grasped Yuki's arm, the chill of despair wrapping around us like a shroud. Akira stepped closer, a cruel smirk tugging at his lips, but the shouts of the guards echoed louder, drowning out everything else. Every choice has consequences, Oiran, he taunted, a puppet master with too many strings pulled taut. And this choice, this path you've tread will lead to heartbreak, trust me. Before I could comprehend the full weight of his words, the world around us exploded into chaos once more. The air grew thick and stale as we stood frozen, caught between the weight of Akira's betrayal and the advancing squadron of guards. I could feel Yuki's breath hitch in her throat, her pulse raced against my skin, intertwining our fear into a single heartbeat of uncertainty. Akira, you don't have to do this, I stuttered, searching desperately for the glint of camaraderie that had once sparked a connection between us. But his gaze was locked on something imperceptible, something ruthless. You think this is about you? He barked, his voice filled with disdain. You're a means to an end. The powerful summoner you may or may not be is irrelevant now. The trinket holds greater value than your life. The jagged reality of his words struck me like a blow. In that moment, the vibrant festival outside faded into the background, replaced only by the encroaching guards, weapons drawn, their reflections gleaming ominously. I had imagined adversity to be grand and noble heroes battling together against the tide of corruption, but here I was, caught in a web spun from my own truths. Yuki's grip tightened around my wrist, a lifeline in the shifting sands. "We need to run," she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper, laced with a raw, primal fear. But I couldn't tear my gaze from Akira's. The boy I had once sought companionship from was now a specter of betrayal, an echo of every naive hope I had clung to. Before I could voice my thoughts, Akira lunged forward, calling out to the guards with authority. "Capture them. They mustn't escape." Survival instincts kicked in and, as if by sheer instinct, I shoved Yuki toward an alley beside the shrine. "Go," I urged, willing him to choose the ally over the enemy, but fear loomed in the air like an unholy presence. We sprinted down the alleyway, hearts pounding in synchronized terror. It was a claustrophobic retreat, and I could feel each fleeting moment stretching to suffocate us in its grasp. "Do you trust me?" I shouted to Yuki, desperation curling around my voice. "That I trust you," she replied. "But where are we going? We can't keep running." A fleeting insight struck. Meth's shrine, older than memory and clasped amongst the shadows, was rumored to house not just the trinket but knowledge of the very summoner Akira mentioned. What if the answers were trapped within its walls, waiting for the lost? If we can reach the shrine, maybe we can unlock the truth. I shouted, the hope threaded with trembling uncertainty. With each step, I could feel the pull of destiny, tugging us toward a sacred convergence. As we rounded a corner, the chaos of the guards faded behind us, and we momentarily lost ourselves in the din of the festival, laughter and music tangling with muffled shouts. But Akira's sneering voice still echoed in my mind. Entering the shrine, dust motes hung in the air, illuminated by flickering lanterns casting labyrinthine shadows that danced against the aged wooden beams. The walls were etched with stories of the ancients, faded images whispering of summoners and their bonds with the ephemeral. Yuki's fingers grazed the carvings, wonder flickering alongside fear. What if the truth isn't what we expect? It couldn't be worse than what we're facing now, I countered, my heart thudding painfully in my chest. I raced toward the inner sanctum, each step turning hope into something tangible, a promise that maybe we were destined for something more than this moment of flight. "We have to find the trinket." As we reached the inner chamber, my breath stuttered at the sight before us. A pedestal cradled an ornate box, shimmering faintly as if whispering secrets of an ancient past. My fingers trembled as I approached, drawn in by an unseen thread of fate. "That it must be here," I said, my hands trembling as I reached for the box. But just as my fingertips brushed against the cool surface, the air crackled with a tremor of energy, and suddenly, a blinding light erupted from within. Yuki staggered backward, her eyes wide with fear. "What's happening?" And in that moment, as the light surged, my vision clouded, enveloped in a kaleidoscope of emotions. Visions flooded my mind, memories not my own but woven with the power of long-lost summoners, their voices echoing through centuries of despair and strength. "Release me," a voice whispered, slithering through my consciousness, as if seeking not just a body but the very essence of my being. I felt the weight of countless lives pressing against me, a shared anguish begging to be honored. "Don't fight it," Yuki shouted, her voice muffled against the tidal wave of energy brewing in the air. The room ceased to exist. It was only me, Yuki, and the overwhelming torrent asking me to awaken. And then, as suddenly as it began, the light blinked out, leaving only darkness thick as night. I gasped, staggering as reality surfed back into focus. But as my vision cleared, I was no longer staring at Yuki. Instead, a figure, cloaked and menacing, loomed in the doorway. Akira, shadows stretching around him, a smirk painting his lips. "How quaint, finding the past wrapped in your ignorance." The warmth of the moment turned instantly cold, replaced with a creeping dread that encased my heart. "You are connected to something far darker than you can imagine," and in that harrowing instant, one question haunted me: what if I was never meant to find the truth? The air pulsed with an electric tension, heavy with unspoken truths that threatened to overwhelm me. I stood frozen, paralyzed by the chilling realization that Akira was not just an enemy, he was now the bearer of secrets that could unravel everything I thought I knew. Akira, what are you talking about? I stammered, my voice shaking as I tried to piece together the shards of a reality that suddenly felt so fragile. Yuki was behind me, her presence a flickering candle in the tempest of confusion that spun around us, yet I couldn't turn to her. My focus was locked on Akira, the summoner's legacy, he continued, his voice smooth like silk yet laced with malice. You've awakened it, but you're blind to its true nature. Your awakening signifies a choice, a path that leads to devastation or salvation. I felt Yuki's hand reach for mine, the reassuring squeeze igniting a spark of resolve within me. Don't listen to him, she murmured fiercely, grounding me in the chaos as I blinked rapidly, trying to shake the wave of fear creeping into every corner of my mind. But what if he's right? I whispered, anxiety clawing at my throat. The visions, the echoes of power were still gnawing at my consciousness, their seductive allure tugging me toward understanding, yet laced with dread. Silence. Akira barked, a flash of anger crossing his features as he stepped deeper into the chamber, the shadows swirling around him, whispering secrets only he could hear. You've been chosen by forces beyond your understanding, and yet here you stand, flirting with the past like moths to a flame. If you know so much, then why betray us? I shot back, desperation weaving itself into my words. The flicker of our former friendship sparked momentarily, a dying ember that refused to be extinguished. We were supposed to fight together. Fight? His laugh rang out, cruel and mocking. That was never our fate. You were merely a pawn, the summoner destined to wield power for others' gain. The truth is not yours to claim. His eyes gleamed with a dangerous light as he stepped closer. I felt the weight of the answer press against my chest. You're a part of this too, Akira. You can't escape the truth. Truth? He spat, the contempt in his voice hardening his features. I grew tired of playing games. The world is not meant for the weak-hearted. I will harness what I can from you, even if it means dragging you into the darkness. As Akira's words sunk in, a tremor rippled through the room. The ornate box pulsed softly on the pedestal, echoing my rising dread. What if he wasn't just threatening me? What if he truly believed that I was a pawn in a larger game, and that he too was ensnared? Yuki's voice rose above the tension, fierce and unwavering. You're wrong, Akira. We have a choice. We're not bound to the roles you cast us in. But even as she spoke, a flicker of doubt whispered within me. What if the awakening was not just my burden, but ours to carry together? Could we stand against the tempest that Akira represented? He smirked, a knowing glint in his eyes. A choice, indeed, but can you too comprehend the weight of that decision? Will you sacrifice everything for a truth that isn't yours to own? Before I could respond, shadows writhed around Akira, coalescing into a figure behind him. A man materialized from the darkness, pale, with long hair cascading down his back, his eyes vacant yet deep. Something about him felt hauntingly familiar. Are you here to help? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, tears welling at the corners of my eyes. We need guidance, protection. What do we do? The figure's mouth curled into a melancholic smile. You must confront the truth within, not the lies others weave. It is only by facing yourself that you can unlock the path you seek. Why should we trust you? Yuki interjected, unease crawling along her spine as she tightened her grip on my arm. What if you're just another deception? Trust is born from choice, and choice must be made, he replied softly, his voice resonating within the hollow spaces inside me, echoing the fears that lay undiscovered. Everything has a price, Akira interjected. Bitterly, the air thickening with his lingering resentment. Are you willing to pay it? If so, you will know the depths of despair. The nameless figure turned toward Akira, his expression shifting to one of quiet understanding. Is that your wish, Akira? To bind them to darkness unending? Or do you fear what may lie in the light? A tense silence enveloped the room, broken only by the soft rustle of someone behind the shadows, a momentary gasp echoing off the walls. I turned instinctively, my heart stopping. In the doorway stood a young girl, her delicate frame trembling, yet her gaze burned fiercely. A faded blue ribbon adorned her hair, a familiar sight that ignited a spark of recognition deep within me. I know them," she stammered, her voice trembling as she lifted her chin, her eyes locking onto Akira. "You betrayed the family, didn't you?" In that instant, the fragile reality I had clung to shattered, and I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet, changing the course of everything. What was once merely betrayal now coursed deep within me, a web of connections I could never have imagined, and as the girl stood bravely in the shadows, waiting for the truth to unfold, I realized this confrontation was just the beginning. The past had woven itself deeply into our fates, threatening to erase us unless we could rewrite the story that was about to unfold. The air thickened with an urgency that rivaled the suffocating weight of my thoughts. I stood on the precipice of chaos, my heart racing as I stared at the girl, her familiar features coiling through my memory like smoke. Around us, the tension surged, and I could feel time stretching like the delicate threads of silk. One wrong move and it would unravel. Ashira. I gasped, the name tumbling from my lips, the connection flooding back like a tide. She had been lost to me, a childhood tragically lost to the dark winds that ripped through our lives. My voice quaked as realization dawned. "You're Akira's sister." Akira's face morphed into a canvas of rage mixed with panic. "Get away from her," he growled, but Ashira didn't flinch. There was a strength emanating from her that I had forgotten existed. "Why did you leave us?" Ashira's voice cut through the thick air, a mix of sorrow and anger. "You chose power over family. Why? You didn't have to betray us." As Akira opened his mouth, ready to unleash whatever venom lay beneath the surface, I interjected. "Akira, this isn't just about you anymore. You might think you've made your choices, but we all have the right to our own paths." My heart was pounding not just with anger at him, but with a burgeoning hope that perhaps we could reach him still. "Path?" he hissed, laughter tinged with derision. "You think you hold power, and yet you're entangled in webs you cannot see. You're just repeating the cycle." He threw his arms wide, a gesture of mockery that echoed in the chamber. "What destiny awaits you both, if you cannot recognize who you are?" Behind him, the nameless figure shifted, an air of sorrow surrounding him. "Many have lost their way, Akira. Your hatred blinds you to the bonds that entwine you all. But truth remains your ally, not your enemy." The walls seemed to tremble as the stillness deepened, laden with unsaid words and memories long buried. Ashira stepped forward, her little form resolute against the tide of darkness that Akira wielded. "I don't care about the choices you made, Akira. I just want to understand why you wouldn't fight for us, because sometimes fighting means losing everything," he replied, his voice cracking. The moment hung heavily, the shadow of his own misery creeping into the words that threatened to tear him apart. Yuki squeezed my hand tighter, her gaze unwavering. "We can help you, Akira. It's never too late to turn back. Choose the light, not the shadows." The tension swelled as Akira balled his fists, the shadows writhing menacingly in response to his building fury. "You have no idea what it means to sacrifice. To hold power over your own mind while being hunted by those who would take everything from you, but we can face it together." I pleaded, feeling an unfamiliar power rising within me, pulling me toward him, toward the broken pieces of the boy I once called friend. "Together?" He spat, eyes wild, full of desperation. "You still don't see it. By awakening the summoner's power, you're walking right into the trap I narrowly escaped. Don't you understand? I'm trying to protect you from the fate I suffered." An unexpected warmth surged from Ashira as she whispered, almost to herself, "You can be free, Akira. The chains you wear were forged by your fear." Hope glimmered in her voice, weaving through the murky doubt that cloaked us, but it was the nameless figure who took a step forward, enveloping us with his presence. Or perhaps the greatest prison of all is one's own delusions. All don't have to face darkness alone, Akira. You can still make a choice. The pulse of the ornate box seemed to synchronize with my racing heart, a heartbeat echoing the weight of all our unspoken horrors. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath us, an unseen force rushing in to disrupt the fragile moment of understanding. A flash of light erupted from the box, illuminating the chamber and casting lingering shadows around us. I was momentarily blinded, but in that breathless instant, I grasped the edges of a truth that had long eluded me. "We can awaken the truth within us," I shouted. "Each of us has a part to play, no more masks, only the rawness of who we are." When the light faded, I blinked against the sudden dark, and the scene shifted. Akira staggered back, clutching his head, shadows swirling menacingly, yet they seemed to be fraying at the edges. "Akira!" I reached out desperately, but he was unraveling, torn between the choice of light and dark. Behind us, Ashira stood, horror shadowing her face as the nameless figure faded, whispering a chant lost in the chaos, "Will you fight for those you love, or will you surrender?" His final words echoed, a haunting reminder of the paths ahead. The air cracked and splintered as Akira looked up, eyes filled with an abyss of fear and something else, something like hope. And then, just as a sliver of light broke through the storm, something shattered deep within him, and I realized the answer was never just a choice. It was a reckoning that held us all captive, and the next moment could change everything. The shadows twisted violently, and with a deafening roar, the ground shook. Everything spun around me, and then silenced. In that instant, everything I cared about hung in limbo as I felt the world tilt dangerously out of balance. The choices were ours to make, yet the walls between us and the truth loomed perilously, threatening to pull us apart before we could ever unite. The oppressive silence settled over us like a thick fog, each breath a labor against the intermingling tides of fear and hope. I could still feel the remnants of Akira's turmoil thrumming within the very air we breathed, but a profound stillness had taken hold, a deceptive calm that belied the chaos lurking beneath the surface. I reached for Yuki's hand, finding a familiar warmth amidst the coldness strangling my heart. Her eyes were wide with concern, reflecting the swirling conflict surrounding us. "What just happened?" she whispered, fear threading through her voice. "Two don't know," I stammered, torn between the shattered memories of friendship and the harsh reality of betrayal. "We have to get to Akira before the darkness consumes him." The words felt heavy, laden with urgency. Yet an unshakable dread rooted itself deep within me, for I had seen the shadows beginning to claw their way back to Akira. "Where is he?" I murmured, scanning the emptiness of the chamber. "Maybe we should have gone with him," Yuki suggested, looking toward the smoldering remnants of whatever magic had just been unleashed. "He might need us even if he doesn't know it yet." Before I could respond, a tremor rippled through the ground, pulses of energy vibrating against my skin. I strained to listen, discerning the faintest whisper woven into the wind. It was a familiar voice, Akira's, but distorted, echoing like a fragile promise lost in despair. "Ashira!" he shouted, a harsh cry thick with anguish. I turned toward the sound, my chest tightening as I caught sight of him staggering into the open, shadows flickering wildly around him like fiery serpents, each flicker symbolizing his inner battle. "Akira!" I called, a wave of desperation surging through me. "Hold on. We're here." Trembling, he paused, his face shrouded in anguish. "You shouldn't have brought her here, Ashira," he hissed, pointing an accusatory finger not at her but at me. "You're just leading her to the same torment I faced." "No, that's not true." Ashira's voice rang out, piercing through the fray. "Please, Akira, we can help each other. You don't have to face this alone." Her words echoed like waves crashing against rocks, shattering the walls of his despair. I clutched my heart, desperate for the boy I had once known beneath the layers of shadows and rage. "Akira, we're stronger together. Let us fight alongside you." But he only shook his head, every movement whispering defeat. "You can't fight something you don't understand," he rasped, his composure fraying as the shadows surged with renewed vigor, feeding on his despair. "I've lost everything, and if I let you in I risk losing you too." Those words stung, a recognition of the chasm that had grown between us, yet beneath that dark awareness stirred something else, an ember of hope. "You didn't lose us, Akira. We're right here." I took a cautious step forward, every fiber of my being reaching out to him. "You don't have to choose loneliness. You can choose love. His eyes flickered like a candle struggling against the wind, emotions dancing behind the tempest I could see brewing. Love? He scoffed, disbelief staining his tone. What do you know of love? All it brings is pain. You're better off severing ties before the shadows consume you, and it hit me then, a painful realization, a truth seeping into the cracks of my heart, heavy with understanding. You're afraid to hope, I said, my voice barely a whisper. But there's always a chance. Look at us, Akira, we're still here, despite everything. The air crackled as the shadows circled him menacingly, competing with the fragments of light fighting to break free. His eyes widened, wavering, and I pressed on, clinging to the sliver of courage rising within me. What if this time, you trusted us? Opened your heart to the possibility of change? Suddenly, a flicker of something colorful caught my eye amid the turmoil, a butterfly debuting its wings, bravely fluttering through the chaos. I instinctively reached for it, a symbol of fragile beauty amidst disaster, and as it landed on Akira's shoulder, something extraordinary happened. For the barest moment, the shadows receded, and his expression softened as he looked at the delicate creature resting upon him. A butterfly, Akira breathed, his voice trembling with the weight of memories that had been long buried. They're supposed to represent transformation, but is it too late to change? No, Ashira urged, her voice threaded with desperation. We still have time. Join us and find the beauty amidst the darkness. Just as a hint of a smile began to tug at the corners of Akira's mouth, a thunderous explosion rocked the chamber, shadows roaring back with a vengeance. The ground cracked beneath our feet, consumed by a rift that formed an abyss, threatening to swallow everything we'd ever held dear. Akira! I screamed, my heart racing as I felt the pull of darkness seeking to divide us once again. No. He shouted, but the shadows had surged in, erasing the butterfly's beauty from view, snuffing out the hope that had sparked so brightly. Before I could react, the rift began to tear at the fabric of our reality, tugging at everything familiar. In those harrowing seconds, I reached out, fingers brushed against his, a desperate plea lingering in the air. Fight with us, Akira. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. But as the shadows wrapped around him, a chilling realization dawned upon me. Perhaps it was not just the physical bonds that would sever. Perhaps this moment was a choice between staying safe in our hearts or risking everything to hold on to the connection we once had, and with a heart-wrenching shout, Akira was pulled back into the darkness, shadows devouring him whole as silence enveloped me once more. I collapsed, knees hitting the cold ground, gasping for air. Neither surrender nor acceptance had found their way into my heart. Just as light seemed lost, a small spark glimmered against the darkness, urging me to seek the remnants of hope. In my unsteady breath, I felt the flicker of determination reignite. This wasn't the end. Not yet. I refused to let the shadows claim him. But as I turned to Ashira, desperation echoing in my gaze, the ground trembled once more, an unsettling shift marking the emergence of something darker, something I had never anticipated lurking in the depths of our chaos. For within the silence, a voice emerged, sharp as the edges of reality began to unravel. Will you awaken what has always been, or will you let the darkness consume you? The choice is not just yours. Thus, the uncertainty enveloped us once more, casting shadows long enough to choke the light. In that unbearable moment, I questioned whether we could truly escape the cycle binding us, or if we were simply catching our breath before the next inevitable storm. I stood frozen, the echoes of Akira's departure reverberating painfully in my chest. The voice that had emerged from the silence was insidious, crawling beneath my skin like a chilling draft that whispered forgotten fears. It was a beckoning, a challenge, and the weight of it threatened to crush me under its intensity. Ashira's hand found mine, her grip firm and grounding amidst the rising chaos. We need to move, Ashira, I urged, desperation mingling with resolve. We can't let Akira be lost to the darkness. We have to find him. Where? Where would we even begin? She replied, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, mirroring the fear clawing at my insides. What if this voice is leading us straight into a trap? I drew a shaky breath, focusing on the dismal horizon, where shadows writhed like restless spirits. We can't live in fear. Akira would never forgive us if we did nothing. My heart clenched at the thought, the weight of guilt settling heavily upon me. With grim determination, we began to move forward, the earth trembling beneath our feet as we ventured further into the darkened expanse. Flickering remnants of light danced tauntingly around us, yet the shadows were always one step ahead, lunging at our heels. As we pressed on, I caught the fleeting memory of the butterfly, an fragile image amidst the torrent of darkness. It had represented transformation and hope, a flicker of possibility that now clung desperately in my mind. "Well, find a transformation," I whispered, glancing sideways at Ashira. "We have to believe there's a way to pull Akira back from this abyss." "Believe? In what?" Ashira's voice trembled, exhaustion staining her features. "Look around us. The shadows are just waiting for a moment of weakness to swallow us whole. Besides, that voice, what if it belongs to something far more sinister than we can comprehend?" Yet, as we traversed deeper, uncertainty loomed larger than the darkness itself. The shadows coiled around us, feeding off our doubt, and I felt the threads of my resolve beginning to unravel. "I don't know what awaits us," I admitted, "but we can't turn back, Ashira. I need you. We need each other." Her gaze softened slightly, and she squeezed my hand, bolstered by my stubbornness, yet the flickers of fear remained. What if we're too late? What if we discover something we're not ready to face? Just then, the ground quaked violently beneath us, sending shards of earth shooting into the air. An ethereal figure emerged from the depths, cloaked in the Shadowsa silhouette that was hauntingly familiar. My breath hitched in disbelief as the figure gradually took form, every detail morphing from darkness to light. "Eiko?" I gasped, recognizing the face of my dear friend, her spirit illuminated by the remnants of what had once been beautiful. She had been lost during our last confrontation with the shadows, a casualty of a battle I had never wanted to fight. How is this possible? Her eyes, once radiant, now held depths of sorrow interlaced with understanding. "I am but a phantom of what was, a fragile echo in the realms of darkness. But you must listen, what occurs here goes far beyond mere shadows." "What do you mean?" Ashira asked, her voice laced with confusion. Eiko stepped closer, the air around her shimmering like heat waves. "The darkness you feel is a force you cannot comprehend, but what you choose now will create ripples far beyond yourselves. The power of your choices holds the potential for both destruction and transformation, but we're trying to save Akira," I exclaimed, conviction surging through my voice. "We can't let him fall further into despair." She tilted her head, empathy glimmering in her eyes. "To save him, you must first confront the truth within yourselves. The shadows are born from fear. Fear left unchecked can breed despair. You must gather the remnants of hope within you, transform that energy into a light so strong it can cut through the veil of darkness." The gravity of her words sank deep as I wrestled with the uncertainty swirling within me, terror of confronting not just Akira's despair but the shadows lurking in my own heart. "Eiko, what if we're not strong enough? I feel so lost," I admitted, vulnerability creeping into every syllable. She smiled gently, the light within her flickering like a candle in a storm. "Every heart carries the weight of pain, Ashira. But it is the willingness to embrace your truth that may ultimately summon the light you need. Do not shy away from the darkness, it is simply a part of your journey." In her ethereal presence, I sensed a familiar spark beginning to counterbalance the encroaching shadows. "Then we press on," I said, steadiness bolstering my voice. "We'll face our fears and the darkness surrounding us." Together, with those words, the shadows shifted momentarily, as if recoiling against the truth we had collectively willed into existence. But no sooner had hope begun to flourish than chaos erupted anew. The malevolent voice returned, now dripping with malice, swirling like a tempest around us. "You think light can conquer darkness? Foolish mortals, your love will be your undoing." In that disturbing instant, the ground trembled again, consuming Eiko's apparition in a gust of shadows, leaving behind only silence punctuated by the echoes of her warnings. Heart racing, I clutched Ashira's hand tightly, dread settling back into the pit of my stomach. "We must keep moving," I urged, my voice barely above a whisper, uncertainty battling against newfound resolve. As we stepped forward into the darkness anew, the air grew heavy with anticipation. The shadows whispered secrets long forgotten, mingling with the weight of impossible choices laid before us. With each pulse, I could feel the tides of fate warring against us. Suddenly, the ground split beneath our feet once more. Beyond it, a spectral light shimmered, beckoning us toward a choice we could not ignore. The voice from the shadows laughed, a bitter mockery of our resolve that sent shivers coursing down my spine. Will you enter, Ashira? Will you plunge deeper into realms where sorrow reigns supreme? Or will you run, when every choice comes with a price? The air crackled with tension, the choices shifting like grains of sand, ready to tumble downhill. Sweat broke upon my brow, uncertainty spiraling as I glanced at Ashira, whose eyes met mine with the same muted fear. In that moment, I understood our journey was far from over, and the imminent choice we faced would define everything: the bond we shared, the fight for Akira, and the shadows lurking just beyond the veil. Suddenly, the echoes of the past felt heavier, and I realized we stood on the precipice of a decision that might very well tear us apart. The remnants of Eiko drifted like smoke through my mind, her words echoing in the silence that enveloped us. We stood at the edge of an abyss, shadows swirling, hungry for our light. I felt the gravity of everything we'd fought against: the betrayals, the long-lost hopes, the spectral remnants of friendships that had become more burdensome than treasures. Ashira looked at me, her eyes filled with the courage that I wished I felt myself. "We have to trust," she whispered, almost like a prayer, each word weaving the threads of our trembling resolve. As if sensing our hesitation, the darkness pulsed around us, a malevolent rhythm that thrummed against the beat of our hearts. I realized then that fear thrived in uncertainty, and confronting that uncertainty was the only path forward. "We need to let go of what weighs us down, Ashira," I said, forcing strength into my voice. "Whatever happened in the past, whatever choices we regret, these shadows feed on them." Her expression softened, and as she nodded, a fleeting understanding passed between us. Step by step, we'd have to untangle the fibers that held us captive to the darkness, liberating ourselves from the very fears that held us in chains. Together, we moved forward, arms linked, the shadows curling around us, their whispers growing into a cacophony. Yet I felt a fire awaken deep within, a spark of rebellion against the encroaching dread. "Let's confront our past," I said, the words tasting bittersweet on my tongue. "We'll face everything we've evaded. For Akira, for Eiko, for us." The shadows hesitated, seeming to flicker at the edges of my resolve. Perhaps they sensed our determination growing stronger, or perhaps they were simple wraiths haunting our journey, silent witnesses to our choices, no longer the masters of our fate. As we drew closer to the light flickering beyond the darkness, a voice broke through, interrupting the whispering tendrils that sought to ensnare us. "You're making a foolish mistake." The voice snarled, a tempest ripping through the air. Akira's shape emerged from the shadows, embattled and weary, yet flames of rage danced in his eyes. "You think you can simply walk through this darkness?" he shouted, the shadows lashed around him like chains. "What do you know of sacrifice? I've lost everything to protect you." His words cut through me like sharp blades, I could see the desperation etched on his face. "Then let us help you," I cried, desperation cracking my voice. "Fighting alone has only brought you sorrow, Akira. We're not your enemies." As I spoke, Ashira stepped ahead, her little frame unwavering even in the face of his anger. "You don't need to walk this path alone anymore. You can choose love over fear." The shadows surged around him, and his rage only intensified as he recoiled. "Choice?" he spat, contempt lacing his tone. "I didn't choose this. You think I wanted to wield this power? To become a weapon? You don't have to be a weapon." I countered, feeling the weight of the words resonate with truth deep within me. "You can choose to be free." The flickering light behind me grew brighter, illuminating Akira's features. Fear mingled with uncertainty, a battle between old wounds and new possibilities. In that moment, time stretched thin, and I felt a crack in the darkness, a glimmer of hope threading through the shadows, beckoning him to join us. Whatever binds you, you can break free from, I urged. Together, we can unleash love, the strongest magic of all. For the briefest moment, the shadows around him hesitated, flickering as if they understood the gravity of my words. A heartbeat of stillness followed, encompassing all of us, before Akira laughed bitterly, his voice cracking like the surface of ice. Love is weakness, Ashira. I sacrificed everything because I believe that. All it brings is pain. His jagged words sliced through the fragile distance we'd begun to bridge, but I refused to yield to the darkness creeping within. But what is it worth if it means being consumed by it? I shot back, determination spilling forth. You were never meant to face this alone. Let us help you break these chains. But even as I said it, I ached with the truth of his sorrows, the burden he had carried alone, imprisoned by his pain. Whatever chains you think bind you, we can transform them, Akira. I cried. You can choose to let love guide you. Let it melt the shadows away. And then I stepped forward, free of my own self-imposed shackles, allowing my heart to infuse strength into my words. It's time to embrace the truth, Akira. The air thickened with tension, the shadows swirling, reluctant to relent. Akira's expression flickered, wavering between fury and vulnerability. He was a storm raging within, trapped beneath layers of anguish. You think love can conquer darkness? He taunted, but there was no bite in his words anymore. You'll be consumed. Then let it consume us together, Ashira whispered fiercely, taking a step to stand beside me, her resolve unwavering. Let love illuminate those shadows. In that charged moment, I felt a ripple of energy shift within the air, like the flutter of wings longing to take flight. I refused to let despair win, I declared, allowing every ounce of conviction to pour into my voice. We can illuminate the dark corners within. We can awaken the magic that lies within us. Akira, it is your choice. The darkness around him writhed, shadows flickering like tongues of flame roused by an unseen wind. Uncertainty washed over Akira's face, the storm within him finally giving way to hesitation. But I can't yet. Before he could finish, his words were swallowed by a rising tide of light, a blinding brilliance that surged through us, illuminating every shadow that threatened to unravel our bonds. You can, Akira. You only need to believe. Ashira's unwavering love flowed between us, binding us against the tide of darkness like a lifeline anchoring the tempest. I reached out with my heart rather than my hands, letting go of every fear I had ever clung to. And then, finally, I saw it, an ethereal butterfly flittering through the chaotic storm as a delicate reminder of everything we hoped to birth from love. Awaken! I shouted, pouring the collective energies of our truth into that single word. Akira's breath caught, and as the shadows began to recede, I sensed him finally grasping for the edges of light, clinging to the promise we all fought for, a chance to break free. And in that singular moment, we collectively unleashed a lightning bolt of energy that pierced through the shadows, shattering them into fragments like glass against the wind. Akira gasped as brilliant warmth wrapped around him, illuminating the very essence of who he was meant to be. You don't have to carry this alone, I urged, my heart racing alongside his. Trust us, Akira. Silence reigned alongside the light, and I felt his grip strengthening, fingers lacing through mine and Ashira's as he began to remember what it felt like to believe. Together, he muttered, voice cracking, the shadows dwindling beneath the brilliance radiating from our union. Together. With those words, the oppressive darkness released its hold, allowing us to rise like phoenixes ignited by the fire of resilience. And amidst the swirling storm, in that moment of connection, I felt whole once again, no longer haunted by the tendrils of fear that had once shackled us. Together we could kindle hope itself. As we drew close, arms encircling each other in an embrace forged from shared experience and newfound strength, I knew we had awakened something powerful, a flame that could outshine even the darkest shadows. I felt a renewed resolve swell within, uniting us not just to fight for our freedom but to forge a future bound by love and understanding, where the scars of our past would heal rather than haunt us. And in that precious moment, as light enveloped us, I whispered, "We will not let the darkness claim us. We're free." Each heartbeat resonated beneath the glow of our connection, not just as friends or companions, but as kindred spirits rising from the ashes of despair. Love, after all, had woven its tendrils through the very fabric of our existence, and as the shadows ebbed away, the echoes of our past faded, replaced by a powerful resolution. The promise of a brighter tomorrow lay ahead, waiting to be embraced. The world around us shimmered with a renewed brilliance, and the hopeful flame awakened in our hearts could now be ignited into a beacon of strength, reminding us all that even in the darkest of nights, the dawn would rise once more. In that full circle of illumination, standing together against the shadows, I felt a surge of gratitude ripple through me as I spoke the word that bound us all, the promise that we would no longer be defined by the shadows that lingered. Together.